Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Professor Drew's Lab. Let's get right back down to it. You guys have a bunch more questions, and I have a bunch more answers. The first batch that we're going to cover today is a lot more about the world building, or similarly, how does X affect Y, in that vague sense. So let's jump right down to it. Dswag 2014 would like to know, what kind of Pokemon would you like to put in the game but have no real way to implement? So far, thankfully, we've been lucky. Everything that we have needed has found its way in. It's not really a case of like, I don't know how to fit this thing in there. We kind of just go for it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Prime examples like early game Shirley was so busted, but we made it work. The easier kind of cop-out answer so far has been Legendaries and Mythicals being a tangible entity, but there's no need to worry about it because, as we'll get into later, they can't be captured. So far, thankfully, we've been lucky. I've thought about adding some other types and stuff into the game, but it's already so difficult for me to keep everything tracked and balanced and all that stuff that adding more types and how they interact with other types is just kind of more headache than it's worth. But here we go. What do you wish that you knew before starting the campaign that you know now? Build every city like we built Watalonga. Player input in city and town design was the most engaging thing I have done in this entire game. I wish I had done it more and sooner and longer and made it work, because nothing has hit as impactfully as the players being able to tell each other what they were about to see. If it didn't all come from me, it made Watalonga feel like a real place. It was the most fleshed out. There were the most things that they could do. It was diverse. It was full. And it was awesome because the players did most of that work with and for me and each other. So it was a very big collaborative experience, and I think that's what D&D is all about. And I wish I had known that from the beginning, because a lot of towns could have been a lot more fun. Where is your favorite location that you've made in Lyris? See the above, Watalonga. I'm gonna sound like a lunatic, but Watalonga was the best thing that we've done. It's the thing I'm the most proud of. I hope the players are proud of it, because it is just as much theirs as it is mine. Moving on down. Other than Wymancoover, have there been any other times that the players' creativity has added a completely new concept to the world or campaign? Deep breath in. Bentley's fishing, CJ being an agent of chaos, CJ getting a tombstone, Milo taking up cooking, flying lessons with the team, D modifying Pokeballs and capture devices, wanting to have and use a Pokedex, Phoebe cultivating a garden of fruits and berries and making her own medicines and ways to keep the players going. Everything that they do is so inspirational that it pretty much conjures an entire new rule set. It's hard to pick like any one thing, but pretty much every time the players come up with anything, I'm so inspired to help them achieve what they're looking for. It's all good. Everything they've done has been amazing. What is your methodology of presenting Pokemon to the players that are appropriate for their current team and level, and don't feel like they have to train them too much to make them viable? So we've hit this in a couple different ways and a couple different questions, but basically, all wild encounters pretty much are about on par with the lowest level frequently used team members that they have. Anything that they catch is viable to be used. Nothing has to fall behind. Things that are lower level that are being used get tuned more frequently. So they're more likely to get an extra hit die worth of HP, maybe get a little bonus to hit, maybe some damage, things like that. All you have to do is use your team. They will get stronger. How do you or did you decide on the availability of items outside of local exports in the shops, including the number of items, specialty items, etc.? Much like all of the economic decisions, trade deals, imports, exports, and such that I did in world building, pretty much each shop is made piecemeal and has whatever it would make sense they would have. So a lot of the times I'll use a percentile die if the players are looking for something obscure that there's no way I could think of to put in there beforehand. Examples that I'll give are like D's bongo drum or CJ's skateboard. It's things that the players would think are fun, so who am I to deny them? I should at least give them a chance. So if they, if the odds are in their favor, then absolutely, yeah, you can find it there. Giramoxy wants to know, can Wymancoover evolve from being a great trainer? What better milestone is there than being a great trainer, my friend? Absolutely. I don't know if we'll ever see that. This campaign's not really his story, but I do love him, so we'll see. Lucas Hill! I forget if this has been said or not in a campaign episode, but is there a president or prime minister of the Lyris region? Fola is the capital, but I don't remember hearing about something other than the power plant and Punnett Square. Is Alluvia where the politics take place? That's the only city where I 100% remember the Tots meeting or hearing of a mayor. Bookworm has a tag-along question to this. With Fola being the capital, what does that mean politically? Is there a federal government connecting the cities in Fola, or is Lyris more of a confederation? I'm so glad you both asked. The Lyris region was mentioned very extensively in the Worldbuilding series for the War of the Architects. Spoilers abound for Ragnarok if you watch the old VODs. They are up on the channel. Feel free to pop in there if you want to. But to make it more concise for you here and now, the Lyris region, as you know it, is the southern half of a kingdom. So it is run by a king and queen, and there are barons and dukes and duchesses to the north of Greengate. The southernmost quadrant is typically run by a mayor or a de facto leader in the form of a gym leader, a sheriff, something like that, someone who is trusted. There is not a sort of like federal government, there's not a confederation. It's a monarchy. All of the towns down here are basically trying to get a foothold. Fola is the capital because it's the technological center. Alluvia holds all the money. Fola has all of the power and information. That's why they're trying to put up all these towers, expand communication, so they can get a more reliable message to the north. TLDR, there are mayors, yes. They are typically trusted and elected officials, but they have to be approved by the monarchy. So it's a bit of a hybrid type deal, but again, we've covered this in a couple things. The Tots being children means I don't throw a lot of political information in their face, because they can't really interact with it even if they wanted to, because they're children. Through no fault of their own, during character creation, they basically told me, I don't want to and can have nothing to do with the politics of the region. So it doesn't ever really get mentioned, other than in passing, in things like meeting a mayor every now and then. That's about as far as it goes. Moving on down, Bookworm also wants to know, what is Lyris or Fola doing about the disasters in Xantha and Etiola? For Xantha, stay tuned. Etiola is currently fine. It's considered its own entity, with minimal interaction with the rest of the region. The only reason that Etiola is considered part of the Lyris Kingdom is its location. They are still an independent entity, but they did agree to put a gym up there to increase tourism and therefore increase the likelihood that they can trade for goods. Because Etiola is part of a whole other region that maybe someday we'll get into. But all that to say, Etiola is currently not in a state of emergency, and even if they were, Fola doesn't have the authority to help them. I don't know if that's in regards to like the Icebringer and the Storm or the Stonebreaker, but either way, Etiola, as far as the rest of the region is concerned, is either fine or sort of not their problem. Moving on down, the TLDR is what are the environmental, economic, and infrastructural consequences of the flash freeze. So view that in the context of this is still a somewhat magical setting. The being and source of the freezing was aware of its actions and what could happen, and made that storm with a specific purpose in mind. So long term there will be minimal effect. Short term would have been catastrophic had the kids not done what they did as fast as they did. So you can thank them for acting quickly, but that we don't really have to worry about that long term. Moving on, Divine Dragon are the villainous factions / gym leader guardians of the Lyris region, like the Prime Mind, Refusul, and Jax, commonly known about among the citizens. Particularly, are the gym leaders aware of the potential threats other factions pose? Are the gym leaders, other combatants aware that Crash, Mortar, and Nupster are powered by Source Stones, or do they just think they are regular Pokemon? Let's start from the top. Refusul is absolutely not known among the general populace. or most of the gym leaders slash guardians. He's his own thing. He's doing his own stuff. The gym leaders themselves are not all guardians. Not all guardians are gym leaders. Most gym leaders are guardians. There's kind of this give and take to it. Maybe someday we'll get a little more of an answer on like what's going on with the arrow tattoos. What does the organization actually do? What's happening? But until the tots start finding that out for themselves, it'll kind of be a mystery. Most people in the region do not know about the Prime Mind anymore, beyond like a name. They know there was a war. They know there was a champion. They know there was this entity in charge of the other side. That's about as far as it goes for the general populace. A lot of the gym leaders still remember. They know some things that most people won't, but they're not super keen on just spreading that knowledge because, again, it's kind of a cognito hazard to use more modern terms. As for, do the gym leaders and other combatants know that Crash Mortar and Nubster are powered by the Source Stones? Yes, absolutely. They are absolutely aware that these are gifts that some Pokemon will find, and then some trainers will find that Pokemon, or that some trainers might find these gifts and move on with them. But it's not something that they discuss ever, because one, again, it is a thing that could happen, but they also don't know if the trainer themselves are aware of what they have found. And they don't want to spread that information because they don't want that trainer to then go tell somebody, hey, I found this cool thing, if they haven't realized that one has led to the other, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. All right, let's tackle a bunch of general questions. These are the ones that didn't really fall under too many of the other categories, or they just kind of fit more nicely down here. Some of them will be quick, some will take a little bit longer to talk about. Echo Phanta wants to know, if you were a player in your campaign, what would your character be like and what kind of Pokemon would you have on your team? So if you've watched Ragnarok, you will probably remember Lavinia, aka Liver Onion. Thank you, Dean. The ranger outdoor explorer with some trick weapons and tactics that was from like a royal lineage but didn't really want to be and was much more comfortable kind of like out in the woods. That is exactly my shtick. That's like that right there. That is what I would do. If I was in a Pokemon DnD style game, that would have been like my first character. I know a lot of you are probably expecting like, whoa, why wouldn't you start with a Wooper? It's your favorite. If I started with a Wooper, I would never go adventuring because my life would be fulfilled. I would be so happy to have a Wooper already. I would never leave. But that's kind of what I would do. I love the outdoor survivalist characters because it's so different from me. I am a homebody. I am indoorsy. I am not outdoorsy at all. So that's kind of my, that's my go-to. Matthew Turner wants to know, are there any legendary or mythical Pokemon that have partnered themselves with a trainer in the world at the present time? Is it possible for an extremely powerful trainer to command or partner with more than one at a time? No and no. So let me explain more in detail, because a lot of the times people ask about legendaries and mythicals and they kind of get a brush off answer of like, no, I hate them. But in the Lyris region specifically, think of these more as a mythological idea that is given form by the people that believe in it. Let's break that down a little bit. A legendary Pokemon, take the Rainmaker, right, is not an entity unto itself. The Rainmaker exists because the people of Watalonga believe it exists, and it does the things that they believe it can do. If you believe that finding the Rainmaker will blind you, it will blind you if you find it. If you believe that there is a Rainmaker out in the swamp and you might like to meet it, you just might. As for could you ally yourself to it? No, they're not fully conscious beings. They are like a zeitgeist. They are an idea that a bunch of people believe in, and that makes it real. So you can't catch an idea. It doesn't have a physical embodiment. that's a much more complicated thing to explain when people ask like, oh, is there like a, oh, like could CJ have caught the Rainmaker? No, the ball would have passed clean through it and fallen on the floor. They are tangible, you can touch them, but you can't interact with them in a meaningful way. You can't harm them, you can't sort of banish them, they're just there. They are the closest thing you'll find in the TOTS setting to a more traditional D&D settings like Pantheon. So you'll run into them sometimes. Something like the Icebringer, right? Is up in the mountains. The people of Etiola believe so strongly that it can see the future. It can give you omens. It can warn you of things. It can freeze the world. They believed so strongly it could do that it did. And has done in the past. The mythicals and legendaries that we've seen so far are just that. They are a myth given form because people think they should have one. Because it's very awkward for somebody to like envision a concept without putting a form to it. So that's where those come from. But let's move on. Is there a way to provide more opportunity for proactive use of Phoebe's medical specialties? All the other characters have some proactive stuff they do, such as Dee's Artifice, CJ's Necromancy, Bentley's Fishing, and to an extent Milo's Flight Training, while Phoebe seems to be limited to reactive use whenever they encounter a wounded Pokemon. Could she maybe be given the opportunity to make healing power-up medicines with what they find on the road? Similar to a lot of questions so far on will we see the players get some sort of abilities? Yes. I had the same questions and concerns that a lot of you have had of the players didn't have a lot of impact on what they could do. Rest assured, when we get back up and running, we've put probably a few hundred hours in at this point to completely overhauling everything. So when the TOTS have downtime, that's your key phrase, I'm going to keep saying it on all these questions. When the TOTS have downtime, everybody will be getting some cool abilities. All of them, all the way through. Whether or not it's new, whether it's something they've been working on, whether it's something they've already been able to do but didn't have like a tangible way to see what it could do. Yes, absolutely. Haunted Hunter wants to know, will you ever use familiar NPCs from the games like Brock and Misty? Similar to other licensing-based questions? Absolutely not, unfortunately. We will never see characters from the source material because we don't have permission to do so. And more importantly, they've had their stories told already. To put it very bluntly, I don't really, I'm not interested in what like Brock or Misty would be doing in the Lyris region. I'm interested in what CJ wants to do. I want to know what Bentley's up to. What are, Phoebe, D, and Milo? What do they got going on? This is their story. I want to know about them. So you will never see those characters that you know for two major reasons. One being the licensing issue, the other being this isn't their story. They've had their stories told. Benjamite wants to know what happened to Quins' guide. My goodness. Where to begin? So Quins' guide got discontinued very, very quickly for a lot of reasons. And I've covered them all in very different places, so let me put them all here for the lot of you that would like to know. It took a ton of additional effort to make. It was a lot of extra time, a lot of additional art. It was so much more for Joel to edit, because at the time Joel was editing everything for the entire channel. He was doing the Quins guides, we were trying to do the recaps that had come out, and even those got kind of altered and changed dramatically. We had a lot of stuff on our plates already. We were all working full-time jobs in addition to all of this. So if there was something to drop, it was the new thing we had just started that took 15 hours to make a 10-minute video. So we kind of hacked all that. It also did a lot of things that I was uncomfortable with. On top of all the other stuff, it put the towns, cities, and routes in a box, and I hate doing that. Because as soon as something is in a box or on paper, or this is your comprehensive guide to this location, it does a bunch of things, and we're going to cover them all at once, all at a time. As soon as I tell you everything that's there, it's much less believable to have something new show up. If I say, yeah, these are all the restaurants and towns and these are all the NPCs, if the Tater Tots didn't interact with them, I don't want to tell their story yet. If I say, oh yeah, this person was here, but you just didn't talk to them, then the players are going to start thinking, well, we asked the wrong questions. We went the wrong places. If only I had rolled better. Or more importantly and more accurately, they're going to say, we need to go back because we missed stuff. There was more there that we didn't see. We need to go back there. Rather than continuing on the story as it makes sense, it was going to start influencing the players and how they were playing their characters to say, okay, we need to go back to Oriander because there's mentions of like a Scyther. We messed up. We should have gone there. We should have seen a Scyther. And I didn't want people to start regretting the Pokemon they had caught because it wasn't something cooler, if that makes sense. So I didn't want them feeling like they were asking the wrong questions, looking for the wrong things, or that I was just adding stuff in afterwards. And it kind of kills a lot of the mystery if you know everything that could be there. And I couldn't do it for places they hadn't been because same reason. They would go, oh, we gotta go here. These are all the things that we'll find here. And then the players then have to put an extra wall up between themselves and their characters to say like, oh, ooh, yeah, no, we're not supposed to know that, but we kind of do. But hopefully that kind of makes sense. The long and short of it is it was a ton of additional effort and it caused a lot more harm than good. So you won't see it again for the TOTS campaign, at least while it's running. I'm not gonna say you'll never see it, but definitely not while the TOTS are still on their journey. Moving on, Dear Rabbit would like to know, is the Lyris region to the north or south of Hoenn, Kanto, and Johto? I suspect from context clues it is in the Japanese peninsula, but would love to know where for my own mapping purposes. This is in a similar vein to a couple of world building questions, but the Lyris was never designed with the other regions in mind. They are simply a reference tool for the players to shorthand where something or someone might be from. So they are only the same in terms of name. And I'm trying to avoid that where I can, but it's a very easy shorthand if we're kind of just riffing back and forth in a session to say, oh yeah, this is from like Kalos or something. But I'm trying not to do that whenever I can. As for like where it would be, honestly, if you're making a map of like where all the regions are, wherever you want to put it is totally fine. You have full creative control on where the Lyris region would be on a map in relation to anything else. The Lyris region is just grafted onto my usual D&D setting, which is a more traditional like Fantasyland D&D. That's kind of where it came from. It was meant to be easy for the players to explore, and I knew the geography well enough because I had already run a game for like 2 years in that region. So I knew it well enough to just put different people there was pretty easy to go. Trevor Tube! Would you consider bringing on more guests to play characters like Lord Ridgemont? Because it was very interesting to have an NPC become a player. Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it a couple times. Space is tight in the studio as it is, so kind of cramming additional people in there is not super feasible. We do need to get some extra mics, some extra cameras and stuff to do that. So as much as I love doing that, it's hard to bring a guest in if everybody is already there. Because we've already got, again, poor Devin is like kitty cornered. We could probably stick somebody else in another corner, but at the end of the day, we need a bigger studio to really bring them in. But absolutely, you're gonna see more guests come in. I have a lot of friends and we have family that love playing D&D, and I love bringing them into the table as much as I can. We just need a little more space, but we're working on it. Tag along to that. How do you join the Discord? It's not linked in the description, so I was wondering if it was a Patreon only thing or something. We get this question a lot. Yes, it is available through the Patreon. The Patreon link is on every video. It's the $1 tier to get into the Patreon Discord. And you can also drop your lab questions in the Discord if you're in there. So, something to think about, but by no means do you like have to join it. We just appreciate you guys watching the stuff, leaving the comments. That's amazing as it is. And last but not least, a quick and easy one, James Quinzel Wilson. Could the privateers be traced all the way down to the Oceaneers? The timelines are a bit funky, but absolutely, I think you could say that one absolutely inspired the other. Perhaps they inspired each other. But the privateers were an established force, and the Oceaneers came out in the past, so yeah, maybe the Oceaneers went on. I want to believe. I like those guys. They were great. But that's gonna do it for this one. A little bit of a longer Q&A. Totally fine. I don't mind if you don't. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your questions. And if you have more questions, feel free to drop them in this or any of the comments sections. on all of these lab videos. That is the easiest place for me to find them, or as we mentioned earlier in the video, if you're part of the Patreon, you can go ahead and fire off your questions in the Professor's Lab channel in the Discord. Don't be afraid to post spoiler-ish questions. You'll get a spoiler warning before we talk about any of those in the Q&As in the future, but something to keep in mind. You can ask anything, I will answer whatever I can. Just avoid the hypotheticals, because they're so hard to puzzle out. But ladies and gentlemen, I've rambled on for far too long. Thank you so much for watching. We love you all very much, and we'll see you in the next one.